You're stuck because you feel like you can't accomplish things, or whenever you approach a situation, the first thing that comes to mind is something negative like, how do I even do this? How is this even possible? You're stuck because you've fallen into something called a fixed mindset. I'll define it for you along with the other type of mindset that flips it on its head. Now, if you approach something already believing it's not achievable, chances are you won't achieve it. When you think about the things you do today, you want to think of it like planting, right? The habits, the thoughts, and the actions that you plant are the ones that you'll eventually harvest. It's the ones that you influence. So ask yourself, what seeds are you planting right now? And do you believe you have influence over your own future? If not, that's the first shift that has to happen, because hope isn't all lost. It's possible to change your mindset. Even when it feels like there isn't hope, you almost have to have this unreasonable expectation to succeed, or like just unreasonable idea that you're really going to be great someday. Even when it doesn't look like it, even when your back is against the wall, even when, everything else is screaming, yo, you're broke. You're not smart enough. Yo, you're not talented enough. Like that's that person's better. You just have to have this undeniable belief that you'll be great, that you'll just cancel all of that noise, right? I once ran this activity in a leadership session. I split people into groups, gave them 20 pieces of paper and some tape, and told them, build the tallest freestanding tower you can. That's it. No further instructions. And if you're watching this, pause the video, try it yourself. Seriously, grab a notebook, grab some paper and some tape, and see what you come up with. And pay attention to how you're approaching that challenge, because that's the key factor. I had the group do this activity before I fully explained what they're going over, because I wanted their raw and unfiltered reactions, because that's where the lesson is. It led us into the concept of having a growth versus a fixed mindset. So a fixed mindset, just how to define that, is the belief that someone's intelligence, talent, and abilities are static traits and can't be developed or improved, right? When you have this mindset, you tend to avoid challenges, you give up easily when faced with setbacks, and see effort as a sign of weakness rather than a path to growth. Having that perspective can limit your potential for learning and achieving, right? Someone with that mindset tends to be impatient, and it doesn't require, oneself to change, right? They generally feel like they can't hold their peers accountable because they don't hold themselves accountable, right? They'll have a complaint, but will be unaware of themselves, and will like how they unknowingly play an active part in that complaint. I don't know if that makes sense, right? Think of the person who wants to lose weight. They complain about being overweight, and they'll tell you they don't eat a lot, but you find out all they do is eat fast food. Or the one that wants to save money, and instead they spend it as soon as they get it, right? Like, I know, like I was that, having a belief that, failure is the opposite of success, right? Having a fixed mindset doesn't allow you to learn from failure, right? It's thinking, you have a project, and if one part of it doesn't work, you throw the whole thing out instead of saying, okay, this piece worked, this piece didn't, I know how to adjust, right? They have anxiety as well, and their anxiety says, I'm going to fail. That's what they're telling themselves, right? They allow anxiety to stop them instead of walking with anxiety, right? Because on both ends, you're gonna have anxiety, right? So if we flip it now and talk about growth mindset, those guys believe abilities can develop. They can get better through dedication and hard work, rather than their those traits being static or fixed or innate. They embrace challenges. They see mistakes as learning opportunities, and they persevere through setbacks to achieve great things. That perspective fosters a love of learning and resilience, right? Leading to greater accomplishments. They're persistent, they're patient, they hold their peers accountable because they hold themselves accountable. They hold themselves to a really high standard, so they expect those around them to do the same. It requires active change in yourself. They allow themselves to learn from failure because they believe that failure isn't the opposite of success, but rather that it's a part of it. You know you're going to fail, and you're actually okay with it because failure isn't bad. The only thing bad is not learning from them. It's like driving. If you get behind a car, along the way you're going to hit potholes, approach red lights, and stop signs. You might even hit a roadblock. They're not there to keep you from reaching your destination. They're just part of the journey. A red light isn't failure. It actually protects you. Failure can actually caution you. It's a pause so you don't crash. It's a stop, like a stop sign forces you to slow down. You stop, you look around, and you adjust before you move forward. Even potholes remind you to pay attention and steer more carefully next time. Sometimes you take a wrong turn or a wrong exit or hit that, a roadblock. Then the GPS reroutes you. Like, that's what failure is like. It's not the end of the road. It's just a moment to reset, learn, and you keep moving toward your destination. Each failure plants seeds that grow into wisdom and new strategies. But you've got to be resilient. You have to believe that everything is figure outable, right? Which comes from a book, and it's a really good book, right? So it means that any problem, goal, or challenge can be solved with a combination of mindset, creativity, perseverance, and actual action, right? It empowers you to take ownership. You have control of your outcomes. The idea that you don't is complete balagna. I know it's baloney, but I like to say balagna because that's just how it's spelled. But it's believing in your ability to find solutions and overcome obstacles rather than being defeated by them. So in this instance, anxiety shows up in a way that says, what if I'm not improving fast enough? The growth mindset lets us walk with anxiety because your concern isn't, I can't do this. Your concern is there a way to do this faster? Am I doing this in the most efficient way possible? And those questions, how can I do this better? Can I do this faster? Things like that. That's what pulls you into something called the learning space. And I'll go into this concept of a learning space in a future video. But in short, it's the messy middle where growth happens. Look into Dr. Becky. She coined this term. When it comes to learning something new, you actually take the time to go through the natural ups and downs of growing. Accomplishing something or being successful at something isn't a linear progression. It ebbs and flows. So it's being comfortable with being uncomfortable, being in that gap, being in that space of knowing and not knowing, right? So let's bring this back to you. Where do you notice yourself in a growth or fixed mindset? When do you find yourself slipping into the fixed mindset? I know there's times in my life where I've demonstrated a fixed mindset. If I'm ever taking a break from YouTube, if I'm not busy with client work, a lot of times it's being in imposter syndrome. It's me thinking that I won't actually be successful doing this, and when I realize I'm getting into that fixed mindset, I have to take a moment to kick myself back into gear. And something that I'll do sometimes is I'll reframe my mindset, right? Because my goal here is to help people like you. If I do that, then I'm successful, right? Another way is that I'll try to get myself back into a growth mindset is I'll do something that'll grant me a small win, right? Just a reminder that progress is possible. And instead of saying I can't do something, I'll turn that into I haven't figured it out yet, right? To shift my brain from permanent failure to temporary learning. Sometimes I'll take a walk to disrupt a mental stuckness. Sometimes I practice gratitude and effort. I'll pat myself on the back for the simple fact that I tried, because many people don't, right? Many people wait for motivation like it's magic, but it isn't magic. Right? Feeling motivated, feeling inspired, that feeling comes and goes. So it's important to be disciplined, and it's important to ask yourself, how are your choices, your attitude, your words, and your actions, or lack thereof, influence your mindset? And even more so, how do they influence those around you? Because now we're talking about something even greater, because now we're not just talking about yourself, we're talking about how do you think others are perceiving you, right? You ever see someone and be like, man, that person's a downer? Or the opposite, oh man, that person inspired me today. Just off of the simple fact of how they operate, or at least how they perceive to operate, right? People are drawn to you for many reasons, and sometimes people are drawn to you because you're a downer, and misery loves company. Other times they're drawn to you because they feel like you've got it figured out. Even if they don't, a lot of times people who seem like they've got it figured out, I'll tell you right now, they don't. They don't even believe they got it figured out. But they have a mindset that won't keep them down. That's why ostensibly, like, they look like they've got it figured out. They themselves are screaming in their minds, but they're making an active decision not to give up. They're not letting something or someone stop them. So the next time you hit a red light or feel stuck, remember, it's not the end of the road. It's just part of the journey. So keep going with a growth mindset. And if you need someone to talk to, whether it's about leadership, finding inspiration, or even just figuring out a way forward when you feel stuck, hit subscribe, leave a comment. Who knows, I may pop up on your feed when you need it most. If you'd like to set up a call with me or something, I don't even think I have that set up. I'd have to figure out how to do that. But like, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, and I won't pretend to be. I'm not promising self-help hacks or any clinical fixes, right? If you're looking for that, I'm not your guy. I'm just a human who's lived a little, made mistakes, learned, kept moving, and I'm still learning and still moving. And sometimes that's exactly what you need. I know it's exactly what I needed. So remember, you're the algorithm. What you choose to feed your mind is what grows. So feed it well. Thank you for watching.